What is up, everybody, and welcome to another video. And this video is actually a second podcast style with one of the coolest people I probably met in my life. We got Sabbatical Tommy in the house today. And interestingly enough, it's actually probably the second or the third time he's getting questioned by a Russian. This time, hopefully not by an FSB agent. So how are you doing today?
I feel like the luckiest man in the world. Believe me, doing great.
So, are you back home right now, or are you traveling around now?
Well, I can't tell you too many details because, as you
You
just
never
said, you
know.
could be an FSB agent. But yeah, I am back in America. Um, we'll be here for a little bit, and
Nice.
just trying to relax, unwind after that most stressful of experiences.
And many people probably don't even know about this. Actually, a lot of people on the live streams that I've made before were like, "Have you seen what happened to Sabbatical in Russia? He's in prison right now." And I was like, "Holy smokes!" That's why I messaged you. You replied to me. And now you're over here on a Russian guy's channel. Funnily enough, being in the States right now. The
Right.
question I'm having is, why did you want to go to Russia and film around there? What was your idea of it?
That's a good question. Because a lot of people have been asking me that, and they rightly think I'm a little bit insane for going. But I mean, as I'm sure you know, you come from a country that's the largest country in the world. There's tons of culture, different groups of people. There's so much to see, like beautiful geography and whatnot. The Trans-Siberian Railway. I'd always wanted to go to Russia. Like I formerly lived in China for 6 years, and obviously
Oh,
Russia is
wow.
just above it. I would meet tons of Russians in China, and I always thought if I had the opportunity someday when I wasn't broke, I would like to go there and explore and everything. And it ended up this year, I was trying to do a trip going from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean
Oh, wow.
uh, without flying. And Russia just happened to be right in the middle of that. Um, I mean, technically, there wasn't really a better option. I would have had to have gone through Iran and Afghanistan, I think, instead. So, but yeah, so that's how I ended up in Russia. And I mean, I actually greatly enjoyed it while I was there. Um, I usually like to tell people that I separate people from governments, and the Russian people are awesome. But yeah, things didn't quite
so
work out yet.
so it seems like you didn't choose, the right time of the year to visit Russia. Um,
Right time of the
but
decade.
yeah, for sure. But when you actually arrived to Russia, right? How did it feel like? Did it feel normal, or did you like when you stepped off, into the into Russia basically? Did it feel weird or did it feel normal in your opinion?
Um, it felt I remember I felt almost ecstatic because I mean, just imagine like from the very beginning, getting into the country is like super complicated. Like I crossed from Estonia and there was literally an 8 hour line to like cross the border.
Oh,
And that
wow.
was mainly imposed by the Estonians because they were trying to like stop people from going over, bringing
Oh, really?
currency or not. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and actually, like even on the Estonian side, they took my passport and they brought me in for extra questioning. And it was the weirdest extra questioning ever because they brought me in just to tell me, don't go to Russia. We don't want you to go to Russia. We have had stories of people going over there and then being interrogated for like a day or 2 days. And once you're over there, we can't guarantee your safety. And I'm not going to lie, they almost freaked me out enough with that little talk to turn right around. But instead, I kept going. And I don't necessarily regret going into Russia. I regret what happened later. And then once I finally got to the Russian side, because crossed from Estonia, I don't know if you ever done it before, but you got to
No.
cross this little bridge. On the other side of the bridge, surprisingly, the Russian side was just like, all right, we're gonna question you for 5 minutes. It was done. They didn't like check my cameras or bags or anything. And I was like, oh. well, this
They didn't
was
even check your phone?
maybe the West was lying. Maybe things are actually much nicer over here. And so I was pretty happy. I made some friends, like while I was waiting in line. They like helped me like find like a form of transportation to get to St. Petersburg. And yeah, I was over the moon. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. This is like, I'm not supposed to be here, but this is really
Yeah, but I
interesting.
made it, right?
Yeah, it's like, it was a weird feeling at the same time because obviously, as I'm sure you do, like you don't necessarily support what's going on in the world, with like the war and everything.
Definitely. Everybody
Yeah,
knows I hate the Russian government, but I love Russia. A lot of people
yeah,
mix those two things together. Like I'm proud to
yeah,
be Russian, but I hate the Russian government. That's
yeah,
that's a big difference.
yeah. That was like the conflicting thing in me. I was like, I feel like an asshole for enjoying this, but that doesn't make any sense. I know I even met tons of people while I was in Russia that had all kinds of different opinions about what was
Yeah.
going on. But yeah, so
It's
good and
it's
bad at the same time.
definitely it's definitely a beautiful country. There's a lot of things to see, but just what happens. The question is, you were just saying that you were interrogated for 5 minutes at the Russian border. Did they not check your phone, or what did they ask? What
They did
was
not check my phone, and
really?
that's what I was expecting. I was expecting something much more like rough like that. Ironically, later, because I actually left Russia one time to go into Kazakhstan, and then I came back from China, and when I came in on that side, they did do all that.
Oh,
They led me to a scary looking room. There was a guy with a dog just watching me. Then they bring in five guys and they're like going through my phone. They're going through the secret photos folder, the hidden photos folder, the whole thing. But at the end of it, they just let me go and they said, enjoy Russia. I thought
oh,
everything
wow.
was going to be fun.
Funnily enough, I actually experienced a similar experience as you did, just the one you told about. When I returned from Turkey in my car, I got interrogated for like an hour by some FSB guy asking me why am I going back. And I'm like,
Uh,
what do you mean? My passport says Russian Federation on it. I'm going back home. Why are you asking me those questions? And
yeah.
it was just crazy. And I'm just surprised that it was so simple for you to get in. Both sides kind of.
Yeah.
Um, So you thought it's a great idea to follow some really interesting footsteps of other YouTubers that I watched before by going to the eastern part of Russia, right? To basically the Jewish city, you would call it, right?
Yeah.
In the eastern part.
Yeah. I actually only realized afterward that I was following in anyone's footsteps. The way I do my trips is I usually just start out looking at like Google Maps and just like picking
Plan it
out
out.
random cities. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And then I was going along the map and I see there's a place called the Jewish Oblast. And I'm like, what? There's a what? In
In the
Siberia?
eastern
Most
part of
random
Russia.
thing. And yeah. And so during the trip that I just mentioned, where I went back into Russia from China,
Yeah.
I started off in a place called Blagoveshchensk. That's one of two, I believe it's only two border crossings with China that you can go into.
Yeah.
Um, and so my plan was to go from there down to Vladivostok, and I was just going to take the train. And I saw, again, there was this Jewish Oblast place right in the middle. I was like, all right, I got to see this.
Yeah. You can't miss out a random place like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's one of my problems. Like, I start out with just this kind of dumb curiosity, and I don't necessarily look into like as much of the security aspect as I probably should. But I don't know. It's also, what can you do? I don't know if it's
But
my
in
fault.
a sense, you're pretty much used to having the freedoms of kind of walking around everywhere. You would never think that something could happen to you, because
Right.
you flew into Russia. everything seemed normal, and you're probably in your brain, oh wow, those guys, they're probably lying. All of those stories are just some random once-off situations that are not going to happen to me because I'm just a YouTuber guy. I never even said anything bad about Russia in my videos. I'm just gonna
Yeah.
walk around, show Russia, which in a sense is actually good for Russia because, it brings interest to the country, and there's a lot of people who are interested in seeing what's going on inside of Russia. But
Yeah.
Russia just, they do the most random and horrific things sometimes. It's not even funny. So when
Yeah,
you
that
were in,
was.
huh?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was exactly it, though. Yeah, like it's because of me getting there, and then, like I said, when I crossed from Estonia, I had no bad experiences. I was like, whoa, I had literally not a single negative thing happen to me. Like as I was crossing from St. Petersburg all the way over to Kazakhstan, and it kind of gave me this false sense of security. I'm not gonna lie. Um, and yeah, like it just I don't think what I did was necessarily that like risky or something. Like I wasn't going to like the border with Ukraine or something. But yeah,
So
it, it
we're getting to that part. You went. I actually watched your videos about this. First of all, they're awesome. I literally watched it under like one breath. Your latest video about how you got arrested. I love the way that you use the images and stuff like that. So if you guys want to check it out, actually, the links are going to be in the description because it's the bomb. Really interesting. But from watching that video, there's some parts that I felt like you left out, obviously, because you want to make the video probably a bit shorter, or maybe you forgot something. But the question I'm asking is, you were close to the border, right? The Chinese border. As a Russian, it's the first time I'm hearing about being 20 kilometers away from a Chinese border is illegal without documents. I
right.
found that out from you.
Yeah, that obviously I did not know that was a law. I don't know if that law is even applied equally across the entire country. I literally had to cross a border from China into Blagoveshchensk. That's like right on the border. It's a border town. So it's a very confusing law that seems to be used when it's convenient.
So you were just did you like come close to the border, or were you actually like 20 kilometers away from it, making your videos, walking around the place?
The closest we got was within like viewing distance of this bridge. Uh, and it's apparently not, it's only like for commercial goods to go back and forth, I believe. It's in a part of China where like nobody lives. And at first I thought, yeah, like, shit, is this some kind of like secret bridge or something? But it's like they've put it on Russian news, Chinese news. It's not like secret at all. You can find it on Google Maps. Um, and yeah, so we were within, I guess, yeah, a kilometer, as close
Oh
as you can
wow.
get. Yeah.
So you were a kilometer away from this bridge, and what happens? Like some border guy comes over to you, or the policeman?
Um, yeah, yeah. So I'm just trying to like take a picture of the bridge. Like, saying this now in retrospect, it just sounds stupid, but um, and eventually, like I see that these border police are coming up. I believe they're also FSB, because the people that work on the border are both.
Yeah.
And as soon as I saw that, like, yeah, my heart dropped because I knew something bad was about to happen. Um,
I mean, in
and
your brain, you're probably thinking, so I'm an American citizen in the far east part of Russia, taking photos of some bridge going to China, right?
yeah, yeah, a thought did enter my head at that point. I'm like, Tommy, this is probably a really bad idea. Like, you might have gone too far this time. And again, like, I take full responsibility for being stupid enough to go over there. I don't want to absolve like the Russian
But who
authorities
would have
from,
known? Who would
yeah,
have known? if I'm a Russian guy, I'd go there without passport. I don't carry documents around with me. Why would I? You know?
Right. Right. And the other important thing to mention is that although that is technically a crime, it is absolutely not a serious crime. It, the penalty was supposed to only be 500 rubles, $5. Like someone told me afterward that you get more for like a speeding ticket.
Yeah,
Uh,
you would for sure.
so it's, it's the kind of thing that I guess normally they wouldn't take that seriously. I got the impression that there's Chinese nationals like accidentally doing that like all the time.
Yeah.
And they just usually have them pay the fine and then they're let off. But for me, this was the big problem was that this like alerted the FSB that there's an American in the area.
So you were filming it. They came over to you, probably said, "Oh, it's not allowed to do this." Did they put you in handcuffs and put you in a car, or what happened next after that?
Um, so basically things kind of started off slowly and then escalated later. So they didn't start off with handcuffs. Um, there was one guard who came up who spoke decent English, if I remember, and he's just trying to understand, like, "Oh, are you a YouTuber? Okay, blah blah blah." And he's just like, "Oh, don't worry, you're gonna go back to the police station with us." And I don't think they said anything beyond that. Like, we got to go back to the station.
Yeah.
And I could have assumed at that point that it was just going to be like a couple of hours. Like I've
It
been
seemed pretty normal,
stopped.
right?
Right. I've been stopped in places like a few different African countries where I did get stopped by the police. And after an hour, they're like, "Oh, okay, you can go."
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it's once they got me there that everything started snowballing. And just they tried to the entire time keep me in the dark about like what they're gonna do next.
So, what I didn't understand from watching your video about this, when you were brought to that police station, right? Were you put in? So they probably asked you a bunch of questions: what you do, where you come from, the reason of your stay, and checking everything. What happened after that? Did they put you in some sort of like a little room at the police station? You had to wait around there. What happened from that point?
All right, so they take me to what I think is like the migrant police office or like a border police
Yeah.
office. There was a different police station where I ended up being kept in a cell afterward. But so at this place, I'm led to like this little room. Um, I think it's somebody's office. I'm not really sure. But yeah, one of the guys who arrested me, um, he's there, and then he starts having me fill out this paperwork. He asks, "Would you like an interpreter?" Which I accepted, considering my Russian is not particularly good. And um, and again, everything is relatively normal or seeming at this point. Like the interpreter comes, like she's literally like almost laughing. She's like, "Why are you so worried, Tommy? Calm down. Like it's a little fine, don't worry." And I'm like, "Really? Okay." And then like her enthusiasm is like getting me to calm down. I'm like, "Oh, okay, everything's gonna be good." But uh, the problem is, and like I'll never forget this part. Like all of a sudden, like he takes like this call, and this must have been like the FSB in Birbijan or something. Because again, I don't fully understand what he said, but he was talking about my passport. He was talking about how there's an American here in
Oh,
Lendiskoye.
big deal.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden after this, I'm told I'm gonna have to stay in the local police jail. Although they did not describe it that way. They told me you're just gonna have to stay here overnight. They made it sound like I'm gonna be sleeping on somebody's couch or something,
Yeah.
but it ended up being yeah, prison cell.
So it was one of those prison cells that you kind of see in like a movie where it's not a proper jail, but just one of those cells where you're in the police station, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am mixing up some of the terminology. Like some
Yeah.
people tell me, like, "Oh, that's jail, that's prison." But anyway,
I actually
uh,
don't know the difference either. I'm just
yeah,
kind of, trying to get an idea here. And
yeah.
you spend there a night, right?
I ended up spending 2 nights
Oh,
at
two nights.
the police station, um, and that cell was like super small. It was like I had the space to like stand up, couldn't walk like left or right, and then just like I don't know, a couple feet ahead is like the door. Um,
So you were there by
so that
yourself? No jail mates or anything like that?
no, you literally couldn't fit another person in that
Oh,
room.
wow.
But there were uh other like tiny cells, and everybody was like really excited. I remember the other like criminals, whatever you want to call them. Uh, they were like, "Oh, there's an American here. That's exciting!" Like, and they're like trying to talk to me and everything, and like, I think probably assumed like, if there's an American here, he must be a spy. Like, why else could
Yeah,
an
he's in
American be here?
yeah, in prison, right? In the middle of
Right,
nowhere, being
right, right.
in a prison cell.
They
That's
happily
crazy.
told me I was the first American to ever show up there. Probably like
Wow.
just show up at that town, period.
I wonder if they put like a little plaque on the police station, the first American in our jail. I
Right,
wouldn't be
right, right, right.
surprised, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, it's a joke, but it also might not be a joke that like, they get promoted for catching an American. So who
Could
knows?
be. That's why they probably got interested in you. So you were there for 2 days. Did you eat any food? Did they give you food? What was that like?
Yeah, they did give me food. Forgot to talk about the food in my own video. Um, food was bearable. I was expecting it to be like really awful, but at this little jail, it was I think they gave me like a hard boiled egg and like a piece of bread. Um, at the
For the day?
actual no, they'd have like a different meal for lunch.
Oh,
The confusing thing though was like I wasn't there during the day because they were bringing me out to get
oh,
drug tested and like all this nonsense
yeah.
during the day. So I'd come back and like the meal time was already over. But for breakfast, it'd be an egg, and then at the actual detention center later on, they'd give me I think it was like bread at every single meal. There'd be like soup every day for lunch, and then it would always be some kind of like rice, maybe sausages, but like sliced up sausages,
Wasn't
kind of
nice, right?
cold. What's that?
What was it nice or was it like just
It was all right. They told me that uh, the prison guards would actually eat the same food.
oh,
So that probably helped with like maintaining the quality a bit. The food was like one of the only things that wasn't awful.
oh, that's actually surprising. Kind of thought that Russian prisons would give you like a dead rat, or something like that.
I was expecting that also. Yes.
And before we get to the part when you actually got to the big proper jail or prison, whatever it's called, did you regret saying that you're a YouTuber, considering the fact that they're going to be like probably spending their time looking through everything you had on your YouTube channel?
Um, I thought about that a lot. I would say I had a lot of time to think about it while I was there, and I came to the conclusion that it was the right thing to do. Because I'm just imagining if I didn't tell them that, and trying to make up some story of why I had a camera and I was on the border, that looks even more suspicious.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So I was just hoping they would be reasonable, watch the videos, realize that I'm clearly not there to like be political or anything like that. And yeah, I think that was the right move in the end.
Oh, wow. And you said that you got drug tested, right? What was
Yeah,
the reasoning of that?
repeatedly. Um, they very clearly were hoping to find like weed or something like in my blood.
Yeah.
And apparently in Russia, if that happens, that's another minimum 15-day sentence. Um, so I think what I think is because the first drug test they did was while I'm still like in this jail on the border town with China, and I think they were hoping to find like weed in me, and then right there they could have charged me with that and then kept me in for like 15 days. Um, Once it turned out that I was clean, didn't have any drugs in my system, then they had to come up with like a fake crime, keep me there.
Yeah, they probably wanted to give themselves more time to dig on you, find something,
Yeah,
but yeah, I guess you're lucky that you don't intake any substances so that they
yeah,
couldn't find anything. Because even if you did, yeah, I don't know, like smoke weed, for example, in Thailand and fly back to
yeah,
Russia, they would be like,
yeah.
oh my God, this
I'm
is
not
really
gonna lie
bad.
though. I'm not gonna lie though. That was one of the scariest parts, just because. I mean, I knew. I'm not stupid. I'm not gonna go and like smoke weed and then go to Russia or whatever. So I knew I was clean, but I thought, is this fair? Like, is this gonna be a real test? Are they gonna like maybe plant something? Like, and then like what happened with the very first drug test that I did was, like frighteningly, it gave like a false positive, which means that it said incorrectly that I had meth in my
Oh,
system.
wow. Wow, that's
And
really bad.
yeah, that's like, yeah, I don't know if they have like tiers for like different drugs that you take, but I'm sure that's probably up there. And, and like the one FSB guy is just using a translator and telling me this, like, you have taken a controlled substance in Russia, like a grin on his face. And at that point, like, like I'm all confused because I'm like, I know I didn't take meth. That's like insane. But then I start thinking like, um, wait, I went to the doctor like 6 months ago. Did he give me some drug or something? Like, I take this one kind of nootropic once in a while called modafinil. Does that have meth in it? And I
Wow, you
just,
had thoughts going through your brain, right?
yeah,
Straight up.
it really scared me.
It,
Not
it
gonna
could
lie.
have been the egg. You could have been thinking, "Oh my God, what if they spiked my hard-boiled egg?"
Yeah, for real. For like, is like this led me to not eat, honestly, for like I wasn't trying to do a hunger strike or anything, but I was just afraid. Like it
That's
was
crazy.
only it was only once I later on realized that there is kind of order to the madness. Like there are some rules that they weren't going to break. Then I started to calm down. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll eat the food.
Wow. But after all of that, after the 2 days you spent over in that little jail cell,
Yeah.
yeah, it's jail, right? Anyways, what happened after that? How comes you ended up in a proper Russian prison?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the crazy story. Um, so, so like I said, while I was in that little jail, they tried to drug test me. Um, it showed a false positive, but it was determined later to be a false positive, and just didn't tell me that. So, after a little less than 48 hours, they tell me, "Congratulations, you're free." They lead me out. I get all my stuff, pay this fine, and the um, the border police officer who had originally arrested me, he tells me, all right, we've set up a taxi for you. You're going to take this taxi and you're going to take it back to Birbidjan, capital of that region. because I had left my luggage there, including my passport. And they said, do not stop anywhere, do not film anything. Just go back there, get your luggage, and then you can go wherever you want. You can go to Vladivostok. Take that taxi, but it's a very unusual taxi. I could tell something was off about it. Like the driver is like not making eye contact. Like the rear view mirror is like slanted in a way where you can't see what's behind you. Also, there's just like this mysterious person in the back seat.
So, just a little thing right here. So they called you supposedly a taxi,
Yeah,
which came with a woman driver and a
yeah,
woman passenger.
yeah.
Oh, I'd be freaking out if I got a taxi ordered with two people in it. I don't know what was going in through your brain at that moment when you saw that.
Right. To be honest with you, because I've traveled to so many countries, like seeing like another person in the taxi didn't immediately freak me out. I'm like, oh, is that normal in Russia? I mean, you have strangers sleeping in hotel rooms together sometimes. So,
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, okay. Get like a passenger in the car. But it's the alarm bells didn't start going off in my head until I realized like how weird like the driver was, and just like how they're not talking at all. And then they like got to a fever pitch once we arrived in Birbidjan, the city, because just like the lady behind me is telling the driver like where to go, like the address. And I'm like, how does she know this? Like she's supposed to be a passenger. And yeah. And then
Did
of
they
course,
listen to like music or anything in the car where it was
um
a complete
oh yeah,
silence?
that's actually a really funny part. Um they had music on, and it was actually pretty loud. And hilariously, the whole time, it's like Russian rap music where they're
Yeah.
talking about smoking weed and stuff like that. All this shit that is like clearly against the law in Russia. And yeah, I
That's
feel like
funny.
this was maybe like, I don't know, a diversion tactic of like, oh, see, we're cool. We're playing like hip music. We're obviously normal people.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
actually really interesting. Were those women, what age do you think they were?
The driver, she looked to be, I don't know, in like her 50s, maybe 60s, but probably 50s.
Listening to rap music about
Yeah,
drugs.
yeah, yeah. I was like, this scene is a little bit off, but maybe this is Russian culture, like I don't want to know. And
That's
then the
that's
lady,
really bad.
yeah, the other lady, she seemed younger, like I don't know, 30s, maybe 40s, and she had a like super serious stoic look on her face all the time. Although, like, to be fair, obviously a lot of Russian people have that look all the time when they're walking around. But
Yeah,
uh,
that's true because people think, why is he smiling? He probably has a mental illness or something like that, you know?
yeah, that's what I had heard. But I had been in Russia long enough to know that they were going beyond that. Like they were just being straight up unfriendly, like a super cold way.
So you didn't try to like start a conversation with them, anything like that?
I did, I did. I was literally asking like, "Oh, what's the name of the song?" Uh, or like, oh, what kind of music is this? At one point, something that sounded, I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like Chechnyan music or something. I was like, oh, this sounds different. This is interesting. Like, and they don't even respond. I'm like, what
Wow.
the hell? Like,
So
what
the
even
woman
is
was
this?
just driving and you're asking a
Yeah,
question. She's like,
yeah. If I had to guess, like in retrospect, um, this probably was like a legitimate taxi driver or something. I don't think she worked for like the FSB, but they probably like told her like, "Hey, we're gonna give you some money," um, which was actually my money. I had to pay for this taxi that delivered me to be arrested. This is how cheap the Russian state is.
You know, when
Uh,
you say stuff like this, it probably surprises a lot of people. For me, it's just like the typical Russian law enforcement at action right here.
yeah, it was. I was speechless. Um, but yeah, I think this lady was just. They told her like, "Hey, we're going to be transporting this criminal. You know, he might be a spy or something like that. We're going to have, one of our team in the back seat. She's just going to help you and guide you along." And so, I get in this car. I haven't been able to shower in like days. I look ridiculous, and then she thinks I'm a criminal. So I think she just wanted to avoid eye contact with me.
Probably. So,
Yeah.
you arrived over at where your belongings were, I'm guessing, right? To some hotel. And
Yeah,
what
like a
happened
Russian
next?
Airbnb. What's that?
What happened next? You arrive to your destination with the 50-year-old driver who's listening to rap music about all sorts of stuff, and the supposed FSB agent women sitting as well with you, and you arrive. What happens next?
Um, yeah. So this was pretty horrifying. Like we arrive in like the parking lot of where like I had this Russian Airbnb. It's not actually Airbnb, but like a different website. And just immediately it's like a sting operation that was set up. There's literally like 8 officers. I don't know why they need so many. Um, they had a girl who was supposed to be a translator. I found out later she was actually the girlfriend of one of the FSB officers, one of the main
Oh
ones,
wow.
like driving all this. And then again, there's a guy. I noticed this immediately, like as soon as I got out of the car, or I should say, I was dragged out of the car. There's a guy just filming the whole thing. I'm like, why is he filming? Like, how is this? If this is what are they like trying to get at here? Um, so they like take me out of the car, and they just tell me, apparently in Russian, I think they intentionally made this like very not easy to understand. They're just like, oh, name, give me your passport, blah blah blah, and they knew from the beginning I could not give my passport because it was, still in that Airbnb. Again, that was a dumb move on my part. In retrospect, could have never predicted this, but and they took advantage of that because apparently, if you do not identify yourself to a Russian police officer, that is considered resisting arrest. Um,
Really?
so yeah, yeah. It
Wow.
doesn't matter if
That's
you say your name, but if you do not give a form of ID, that's enough for them to charge you.
wow. I mean, you know what? They were screwing with you because, if they stop a Russian person, and for example, me, and I'm like, I don't have. Why would I carry my passport with me? You crazy?
Yeah,
They wouldn't arrest me or something like that. But because this was some sort of an operation, and you are the American, right?
right, right. I really think I think if it wasn't this, it would have been something else, to be
And
honest.
this was in the parking lot, so you could have said to the police, "Walk with me. I'll get my passport." Right?
Right, right, exactly. Um,
Did
but
you
I
offer
think
that
that's
option?
no, no. They didn't even follow proper procedure. Apparently in Russia, you might know better than me. They're all supposed to like identify themselves, tell me
Yeah.
like some rights or something like that. And I later got a lawyer, and he like immediately saw the case file for all this and was just like, they didn't do any of this. Like we can just easily overturn this. But at that moment, obviously, I don't know anything. It was like a surprise attack. I don't know what's going on. Um, they just like take me into a car, and then they take me to the local police station. This is in like the span of minutes. I don't
Oh
even have
wow.
time to think about what's happening. And it's like once I'm at the police station, they tell me that, oh, we're here because we want you to give a talk about your YouTube videos, about what you wrote,
Wow.
because you have offended the Russian state. offended the armed forces. I forgot which term they used. Yeah,
Discredited, probably what they said, right?
right.
What was written? What was written that got them so angry?
Um, Literally, because I actually realized after talking with them that they didn't really watch the videos. They watched like maybe a minute of it, and then they're just like, all right, but if this is taking too long to find something, let's just go in the description of the video where I had written the word invasion,
Oh wow.
because apparently pointing out just reality is a crime in Russia at this point. So I had said, but I was like super vague about it. I didn't say like Russia invaded Ukraine. And that actual intro to the video, I was trying to be like sympathetic. I was like, oh, the West is being mean to Russia after the invasion. All these sanctions happened. I was trying to cover my ass just in case something like this happened. And they still said, just because of the word invasion, uh, yeah, you are anti-Russian.
That's wild. Considering the
Yeah.
fact that, it should have freedom of speech. I mean, in any other country, I'm pretty sure in the States you could go, uh, to the White House probably with a sign and say like, "Get out of the White House," or "We don't want this president," or "We want that president." You're not going to get arrested, right?
Oh no, of course not.
Yeah, and
Uh,
I mean, just one word in your YouTube description. That's crazy. That kind of, you know, settles down with me, considering if I ever wanted, for example, to go back to Russia tomorrow and they find out my YouTube channel, that's like 1,000 years I've sentenced there probably.
uh, yeah, you sir. For what I could see of your life, yeah, please never go back.
Yeah, I'm definitely not gonna go back because when I came back from Turkey actually and was interrogated by the FSB guy when I was at the traffic jam at the border, I deleted my YouTube app, my YouTube studio, everything.
Okay.
And when the guy was asking, "Who do you work for?" I'm like, "I'm jobless." He's like, "What?" I'm like, "I don't work for anybody." That's why I got interrogated for like an hour because I did not admit that I do YouTube, which was a right decision because I probably wouldn't be here right now, considering your
Yeah,
story.
sure. You're a brave man for even going back there. Like I don't know what videos you had up at that point, but
Oh, they were pretty bad. In retrospect of the Russian laws and stuff they make right now. So okay, you were when this all was happening. Did the police officers and the FSB did they seem like they're enjoying their time, having a good time? Capturing an American, possibly a spy.
um, yeah. Um, Remembering that actually makes me pretty angry because yeah, it was very visible, like how they're like laughing with each other. They're just like joking around and having a good time. And I'm just like sitting there, like worried about my well being, worried if I'm ever going to get out of this. Um, and they, like a constant throughout this whole process was, you know, I'm not allowed to basically like change my clothes. I stink because I'm not allowed to shower and everything. Like my beard just keeps growing. Like I look like a homeless person and everything. And, they'd have me sometimes like out in public at like the courthouse or whatever. And they would show up in like nice clothes and everything. I think to like just,
Show their
really
trophy.
show the difference. Like, oh, look at this American hoodlum, like
Yeah.
we're fine and proper, we have our suits on.
It's kind of like they're showing their trophies. You were their
Yeah.
trophy.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it was disgusting, honestly.
Wow, that's unbelievable. And when you got to the second police station and stuff like that, did they allow you to call anyone to say like, I need a lawyer. I'm getting screwed up over here.
Um, no, no, yeah, that was another really messed up thing. Like, um, when they arrested me again, at no point did they give me a chance to call. And this was a huge problem because I had literally just told like my family and friends, like, hey, I'm free. I'm sorry to scare you guys. I know I was gone for like 48 hours. oops, just a little thing. And then I go silent again for like, another day. And I can't tell them like what had just happened. I had like a very brief window when they took me to court the next day to like fire off a bunch of messages. And that's how I finally got the word out. And thank God I was able to do that because immediately like my family and friends started working on like contacting an embassy and, just doing whatever they could to help.
Wow. That's I don't even know what you went through. That's
Yeah.
And you
I
probably
mean,
don't even understand what's going on because everything is going so quickly.
yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, I think one of the most horrifying things you could hear is like, you're going to go on trial in Russia tomorrow. And I'm like, what? Because I, at this point, I'm still like a little bit naive. I'm just like, oh, it's a trial. Okay, obviously, I didn't commit any crimes. I'm obviously not anti-Russia. The judge is going to be fair. It should be fine. Um, but of course it wasn't.
So from
And
that police station, you were put into trial, right? What were
right,
they trialing you for? Because I mean, you've already served your time, which you shouldn't have in the first place, for being too close to the border. What is this second trial for?
right. So they told me that I was going on trial, for this whole like putting invasion in my video description. Like I forgot. I don't know if the charge was discredited in the armed forces, but it was something like that. And so I was supposed to go on trial for that.
So you're
Um,
saying just literally for some text, not even
yeah,
in the video, but in the video description, you
right,
got a trial.
right, exactly. Um, but it turns out that that wasn't what they were trying to nail me with, because and this is the crazy thing. Like, I get taken to this courthouse, and I'm given an interpreter. It's the same interpreter who was on the crime scene. This is literally the girlfriend of one of the FSB officers. This is my interpreter. Uh, and then we're taken into this tiny little courtroom. It looks like an office. And I find out then and there. And also, by the way, they never tell me I could have a lawyer, which might have helped. They tell me then and there that you're here because you resisted arrest. That is the crime we're putting you on trial for. And yeah, it just that was horrifying, because I'm like, I realized at that point they had lied to me. They were setting me up. Uh, and I was just at that point, I don't know what I was thinking. Like, my mind was racing. Like, am I about to be here for years? Like, this is what I like I've always heard about. The only saving grace for my sanity, I think, was once. I mean, the trial was over in minutes, but the sentence was 15 days. I didn't know like what the maximum penalty was. I thought it could have been like years or something. So I was like, oh, okay, at least it's only 15 days. And then rapidly, right after that, then they conclude this trial for like putting invasion in my description.
Oh,
And
wow.
again,
Straight
thanks.
away.
Yeah, straight away, like boom, boom, boom. And then that's like 50,000 ruble fine, which
Yeah,
works out to like,
$500.
yeah, $500. So um, it was weird. I thought that, okay, this is really messed up. This is possibly the scariest thing I've ever gone through. But if it's just 15 days, I mean, this is really unfair, but if it's just 15 days, all right, I can do that. The problem is it didn't end after that. Like, I get to this prison, the detention center, uh, to be, they call it a detention center. I think there's like a more harsh prison, like above that, if you're like in there for years. But anyway, like, I'm here, and then they just keep day after day coming for something else. Like they come to drug test me again. They come to hope they were hoping to find like, some big drug find in my bags, but it didn't even have to be a big drug find. Like they could have found like a trace of marijuana on like, the side of my bag or something.
Yeah,
And
that's an 8-year prison sentence straight away. Russian drug laws are really hard.
yeah, it was horrifying. I learned afterward that apparently that region, Jewish Oblast and Azerbaijan, there's a lot of Russians growing weed or something like that.
Oh, wow,
It's like
really?
a drug producing region. Yeah, I don't think
Wow.
this is well known. So the local police and FSB apparently specialized in that. So
Mm.
maybe like they weren't that good at catching a spy,
Yeah.
but they're like, all right, we're going to go back to our bread and butter. Like, we can catch an American on a drug charge. That'll surely get us promotions.
Yeah, for sure. But, so, okay, you're out of the trial. You get escorted to this detention center, and, you know, you were probably walking in there handcuffed, right? To the door. Were you?
Um, they did not bring out the handcuffs yet.
Oh,
Um,
so,
once
so
I was
they
in the
brought you
prison,
to the jail cell
yeah.
without
Um,
handcuffs.
uh, when going to the trial, there was no handcuffs. Then afterward, they started using handcuffs because, like,
Oh,
oh,
so,
now you're a real
oh,
criminal.
so after you got your $500 fine for writing invasion description and 15 days for resisting something you didn't resist, they escorted you back to prison in handcuffs.
Right, right. And
And
this was a new prison. It wasn't. It's a little bit confusing, but I was first in the jail in the border town. Then I'm in the police jail in Azerbaijan, like the police station. Then I'm taken to this detention center prison.
which is a proper prison, right?
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely like, you're locked behind this door. There's this like guards going on patrol, like checking that you're not doing anything. Security cameras in your room.
But when you
If
got there, right, to the door, they open up a door, and what do you see? Was there somebody there, or was it like a really tiny room with nobody inside your jail cell?
um nah, well, at first the first day I was by myself, and arguably compared to the last two police jails, which smelled really bad. Also, it seemed like um I don't know if all of Russia does this, but in that town they were arresting homeless people and then putting them in the police jail.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it
classic.
was like very crowded, and yeah, it smelled awful. But at the prison, it's a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit more spacious. The room is like meant for like 4 people, but I guess they just didn't have enough criminals. So uh, I was there on my own. But the second day, they all of a sudden moved me to another cell, which has this 50-year-old Russian guy. And he ended up being my cellmate for a week.
Oh, wow. Did he speak English?
Not really. Um, he knew like, I don't know, words that he might have learned from like some songs and whatnot. I mean,
Mm.
I learned from him that apparently Russians, even if they're like pro-government, they still like American culture. Like they'll
Yeah, that's
still
true.
listen to like American songs and stuff like that. So yeah, he's trying to help me, like, he wanted me to help him, sorry, like finish these lyrics from like famous American songs, like a Bon
Oh,
Jovi
wow.
song or like Michael Jackson, which is kind of funny.
So you were
Uh,
able to communicate with him, right?
yeah, he was helping me to learn Russian also. I had to, because yeah, like there's no other way to talk to him. I managed to get a piece of paper and a pen at one point, and so I just started writing down like whatever I heard. I'm trying to make like vocabulary lists or whatever. I would just be
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh, eto, what is this? And then he'd be like, oh yeah, that's the keep it talk or like whatever. That's like toilet. And all right, gotta add that
So
to the
he never
list.
asked you any suspicious questions.
Um, yeah, that's a good question. He actually did. Um, at one point, because he said that I actually it wasn't clear to me. He said in Russian at one point why he was in the jail that time. He was there for 10 days. I think it might have been some kind of resisting arrest kind of story with him too. But before that, literally, I think just a year before, he had just finished a 6-year prison sentence, according to him, for having a marijuana plant in his house.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I learned of that was because one day, um, you know, in the afternoon, he just all of a sudden asked me, like, Tom, I think he said, hey, what do you think about drugs? Uh, and I'm like, what? Like, um, and apparently, I think he was trying to lead into his story, but he did keep specifically asking me, like, do you smoke marijuana or anything like that? And again, I'm super 10 out of 10 paranoid, like the entire time I'm there. So I'm
That's
just like,
good. That's good.
just in case. No.
That's
I
good because there's many situations. A lot of people don't know this, but in Russian prisons, there's different jail cells. There's like red, they call them red jail cells, black jail cells, which is basically, I think if you put into a red one, that means you're in with like somebody who is trying to, figure out their sentence and trying to snitch on somebody, or that could have been actually like an FSB agent, staying with you for 10 days. You never know. That's why it's good
right.
you didn't say anything to him.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. Um it's possible he wasn't, but it is very possible what you just said is
It's
true.
a 50-50 chance. You never
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Um yeah, just because it was like a very specific question.
Yeah. Wow. But I mean, I would be sure that he was a setup 100% because their goal was to keep you there as long as they could.
I did um I asked the guards the day that I was moved to that cell, like, why am I being moved? Like, what was wrong with my cell? Clearly, like, there's not that many prisoners there. And they just said, we don't know. We received a call from the top, and they said, you got to move to this one. So
Well, that
that
answers your
sounds,
question.
yeah, that
Literally.
sounded pretty specific. So
I mean, you literally had either an agent or a guy who wants to get rid of his jail sentence sitting
I
with
would,
you so that he could snitch on
yeah,
you.
I would lean towards the latter if it was something like that. Um, he definitely did not strike me as an FSB agent. He's
Yeah,
kind
but
of
I
a
mean, if you have like an operative, you would have never known. He
that's
could have
true.
been telling you all those stories, learning about the American culture. And if you think about it, he was asking you to teach him on how to finish the, American songs or Western songs, which definitely, eases you in. This sounds wrong. Eases you into him, but you get the idea, right?
Thankfully, there was none of that while I was there.
Yeah. No, you said in the video, nobody drops soap around there, right?
Right, right. Yeah. At least not in that prison.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that he was kind of getting to the things that you knew well, so that you could befriend each other. And when you become friends, that's when he struck you with the drug questions.
Right. Exactly. Um,
Man, you
it's
went through a lot of stuff. It's
yeah. The more I
crazy.
think about it, yeah, it it makes a lot of sense, especially because yeah, he left like halfway into my sentence, so I'm like, yeah, maybe this was like some plan, like we're gonna like monitor what he says during that time, and then like build the case after that.
Yeah.
Craziness.
So how long were you in that prison for?
So 15 days in total from beginning to end. I went in at, I believe I arrived at 2 p.m. on what was it, October 27th or 28th, I think, and then did not get out until November 11th. And for again, like for the first 3 days that I was there, um, those were the scariest because the FSB was still coming and trying to do something, like I said, like try and find drugs or whatever. And every day was something. And so I started to get like afraid of like whenever someone came to the door. I was like, oh shit, they're here to harass me again.
Yeah.
Um, and then after that, then all of a sudden, it's just relatively calm. Just really boring. Unsurprisingly, I'm just like in this prison, don't have a lot to do. I tried to learn Russian to pass the time. You get to go out to like this prison yard, but it's literally like a cage. I don't know how
Oh,
to
wow.
describe it, but it's like not that big. It's like maybe like 10 by 10 square meters, and you all you can do is just like walk around. There's no like weights or something that you like
Not
lift.
like in the movies, right?
Nah, yeah, exactly. The only good thing about that I felt was it didn't seem like there was like gang fights in Russian prison, from what I could tell. Although very interestingly, I didn't get to share this in my video, but there was one day because like normally during like this yard time, they would keep me separated from everybody else. There was like 3 cages, and they would always put me in like the third one, away from everybody. But one day, this one officer, I don't even know if he was allowed to do this. He was like, "Oh, you wanna go in this cage? Like you can talk to
Choose your
people?
cage.
Yeah, which cage do you want?" Uh, because the one cage where they would put like everybody else was usually like I don't know, like 7, 8 guys. It did have like a pull up bar, so I was like, do want to do some pull ups. I don't want to like keep wasting away to nothing here. So I did have one afternoon, and that was interesting because again these guys are all like, oh, it's an American. Oh, so what are you doing here? Like, uh, and then there was one guy who just came up and asked me point blank, like, what do you think about the war in Ukraine? Like, что ты думаешь,
Yeah.
чем Ukraine? And like, I was just like, I don't. I think I said I don't like war, but yeah, go Russia.
Yeah, I
Right,
mean, you gotta say in situations like this, you gotta say whatever that gets you out, so
right,
you don't
right.
get
Yeah,
shanked
yeah.
there.
That wasn't the time to be the hero.
Yeah.
Um, the other interesting thing was I could see that some of the guys there literally had what looked like a brochure for joining the war in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
So it
Wow, that's
was
actually
like,
interesting.
yeah, it was like I guess because I've heard, yeah, you can just like void your prison sentence if you
Yep.
volunteer to go and fight in the war. And so they were passing it around and like seemed like they were considering it and whatnot.
Did you get a brochure?
They didn't give one to me. Thank God. That
Yeah, you
is
were definitely lucky about that. That's
that is the worst
unbelievable.
nightmare I can imagine. Like that's on a whole other level. Being sent to fight Ukraine.
So, fast forward, the days passed. You had your one time in a cage with somebody else, and well, what happened on the day that you were getting out? Did you know that you're going to be out that day, or how did that happen?
So in the last week, the last 7 days, um, in the lead up to that, I managed to get connected with a lawyer, uh, thanks to family and friends, and we actually appealed the original charge, which was this whole resisting arrest thing. Um, and we won because it was such bullshit. And but what happened was after winning, it just got passed back to like the original court. So apparently this was like the highest court that we won at. But for some reason we have to go back to this lower court. We have to win there in order for me to be
Oh,
free.
wow.
But again, it's like the same judge. I don't know if she's necessarily corrupt in any way, but she just would always rule against me. Like she
It's
would
called
like,
being in the system, I think.
yeah, yeah. So what happened was the very last day, my lawyer told me like, all right, listen, realistically, you're probably not going to win this appeal. If you want, you can just leave it and just go. It's fine. But I apparently like I don't know, for their legal purposes, they needed like the conviction to be set. It can't be like left in limbo, like in an appeal
Yeah.
stage. So the day that I'm leaving the prison, I walk out and horrifyingly, again, all the police are there.
Oh,
Like imagine
wow.
you just got out of jail and then all the police are waiting for you. And I nearly had a heart attack all over again. I'm like, they're about to do it again. They're about to like whatever. It
That's
turned out that thankfully all they wanted was they wanted me to go to court and do the actual case so that they can win again. Because I think I found out afterward that if you have 3 convictions on your record, they can ban you from the country for 5 years or more. And that seemed to be what they were going for. I think they were like, all right, we can't find a legitimate drug charge. We can't find a legitimate spy charge. So this is not the best option, but let's just ban him from the country.
wow.
And that sucked because naturally, at this point, the only thing I want to do is just get out of Russia. So I had been planning to just catch a flight in Khabarovsk, which is like the closest big city. But this trial ended up taking up like the whole day. So, and then I still needed to get like a transit visa because being in prison had made me overstay my visa. So that was another problem. Surprisingly, there is a migration office in Azerbaijan. I have no idea who's migrating to Azerbaijan, but I was able to go there and get this transit visa, but I had to wait until the morning to pick it up. And I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the scariest parts because I'm just like, I got to spend another night in this town. Like, I
Yeah, and you
seriously
never know
thought, like,
what's going to be in their heads, right? Overnight.
right, should I just go and like swim over the river to China? Like, because I had so many of these thoughts before while I was in prison. Like, you think about how you could have avoided it. You start second guessing yourself and whatnot. But finally, the next morning, get the transit visa. I go on Yandex Taxi, get a taxi, tell them like, don't care what it costs, take me to Khabarovsk. Get on. Well, first I have to pass customs at the airport, and that
Oh,
was
that's
like the
another
last
sketchy
super
part.
tense moment. Yeah, because um, show up at the customs gate. And at first, it's like this nice middle-aged Russian lady. She's like, "Oh, ты говоришь по-русски, хорошо." Like she's like happy about that.
Yeah.
And then I'll never forget, like she looks at my visa in the passport, and just her expression completely changes. She just like goes from like smile to like, and then for like 15 minutes, she's just doing something on the computer. And I'm like, my heart is pumping. I'm like, what is she doing? Like, is she contacting somebody? Is she like calling in like somebody from Moscow or something? Uh, and then finally she just hands the passport back to me. The smile comes back and she's like, okay, that was Vidania. And then I finally get to go. I get on this plane. It's according to what they were saying, it was like a chartered flight for like these Chinese workers that had come just to build an oil and gas plant in Russia, and the job was done. So it's just me and like 100 other Chinese dudes, and we fly over the border, over the river, the Amur River that separates Russia
Yeah,
from China, and then it's finally over.
that's crazy. Imagine saving yourself, right?
Yeah,
Saving yourself from Russia and going into China and feeling better about it. How
right,
did it
right,
feel when
yeah,
you landed in China?
right. It's to be honest, like at that point, like I had had enough paranoia built up to last me for like a year. So I'm still, of course, tense getting to like the Chinese customs. I'm like, what if like the Russians told them or something?
Yeah,
But speaking of China, like I had gotten the impression that during that whole experience that Russia and China don't share that much information with each other, like especially in that particular region, because that whole region used to be Chinese back in the day. I mean, it was more like borderland or whatever, but
yeah,
Russia took it in the 1800s. And there are these nationalists in China that want that to come back to China at some point. So I don't think the Russian authorities feel like super secure in that area.
yeah. Definitely
But
tensions around there.
yeah, but once I was in China, because I had lived in China for 6 years, I kind of understood like the ins and outs of China much better than Russia, and I had a good feeling that everything was going to be all right. But just to be safe, I did like 3 days later go to Thailand. I was like, yeah.
I actually
Although,
wish I caught you when you were
I,
actually going to Thailand.
oh, you were there at the same time.
I live here, literally.
Oh, right, you're there right now. Nice.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Uh, yeah,
I
but at
didn't
the
know.
same time, considering the fact of what you went through, the last thing you would do is meet up with some Russian guy in like Bangkok, right? That sounds like a
Right.
sketchy idea.
Right. Yeah. It's not like I was actively avoiding Russians, but I wasn't going out of my way to meet them at that point.
Yeah, you never know, honestly. After videos like this, you could have anybody messaging you. But you know what? This whole story that you told us is just absolutely crazy and incredible at the same time because first of all, you know, I got to ask you the questions which I really wanted to know from a foreigner in Russia, you know, getting getting into prison, which is crazy. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. I'm surprised you don't have PTSD right now from all that stuff.
It, it might be lurking in there somewhere that told me it can
Yeah,
come back later. I
yeah. I mean,
was
you're
I
probably
was
gonna be.
watching oh sorry.
Yeah, I'm
I was
sorry.
watching
You're
this
you're probably gonna be a bit more sketchier in countries like post-Soviet countries or like some countries with corruption.
right, right. Yeah. That's pretty sad. Like I gotta like worry about going to somewhere like Georgia or
Yeah,
Kazakhstan. Gotta like write off the big North Korea trip. Was looking forward
yeah. You're
that
definitely not going there after that.
was really looking forward to that vacation.
Yeah.
Got crossed it off the list.
Well, I mean, you kind of visited the future, bigger North Korea now, so you can
Right.
kind of take it off the list. But
I got a
there's
taste of it.
yeah, you got a taste of it for sure. And holy smokes, we've been here for 1 hour 14 minutes. But I actually want to ask you just a few more questions, which will sum up this video. First of all, um, let me see. There was a really interesting questions. Oh yeah, at one of my live streams, there were some people saying, what did the guy expect? He broke the laws, he paid for them. Obviously, I mean, you didn't read. Even with the law you broke, you been paying $5 and get going with your day. But there's plenty of Western YouTubers living in Russia now, and making videos about how incredibly safe it is, how you should bring your whole family over to Russia. And people like me are a bunch of lying bastards that are making up stories of Americans being put to prison. And seeing stories like your story, I wanted to hear a story from an actual American who decided to visit Russia.
Yeah, an American who didn't decide to be a propagandist. I mean, like, I feel like that's the crazy thing. Like, I'm probably the best they could have hoped for. Someone who was just a normal dude who, wasn't actively going to Russia to try and like do journalism and make the country look bad. But funny story, by the way, mentioning those Americans living in Russia, making it look good. A bunch of them, when I first started posting my Russia videos, they start leaving comments saying like, "Oh, go show them the real Russia. Like, great, come to my region. Like, we can make a video together." They're trying to
I
like
already
collab with
know who
me and
you're
everything.
even talking about already.
Right. And
Yeah.
then once I dare to announce that I had just been arrested unjustly and put in prison, they all turn on me immediately. They're just like, "Oh, I don't trust this guy. He's a provocateur. He's just here to like make Russia look." I'm like, "You guys, Jesus Christ. Is this what your
I
contract stipulates? You have to say this?"
I that's what I'm telling. And I actually know I could I'm not gonna be naming names right now, but I 100% sure I know who you're talking about. And I had beef with the guy, and I wanted him to come to Moscow when I was in Moscow and say stuff to my face, which for some reason he changed his plans. But anyways, it's crazy, it's interesting, and considering that we have the Westerners in Russia promoting it. I mean, it's a beautiful country, but saying it's safe
Yeah.
and stuff like that is not so true, because for taking a
Right.
photo, you could literally end up in jail in the best case scenario for 15 days. In the worst, God knows until how long.
Yeah,
And
for sure. It was ignorant of me to be like so daring in like, the current era where, Russia's invading Ukraine and like they're super tense and everything. I admit that mistake fully. But come on, it's supposed to be a fine of like $5. Like everything
yeah,
they did afterward that's not fair at all. Like that's messed up, and like no country should be treating their visitors like that.
so the last two questions I got. What do you think about the Russian judicial system after all of this?
Um, I mean, I have a new perspective on it. Um, Obviously not particularly happy with it, but the only saving grace I can say is it's safe. I used to think Russia was like 100% lawless, like that. Just the police decided what they wanted to do, and like boom, boom, boom. And to a certain degree, that's still happening. Obviously, I learned that what they did to me was a tactic that they had been using since literally the Soviet Union, where it's just they don't have anything concrete, so we're just going to make up like a resisting arrest charge, get them in here, and investigate them further. But once they did that, which they tried to do it like by the law. That's why they had a guy filming. They're like, "See, he actually resisted arrest. This is like a real crime." Afterward, they tried to legitimately find a crime. So it's the only good thing, I guess. If I would heavily recommend no one travel to Russia at this point. It's a shame again because obviously there's
That's
cool people
answered
like
my
you
second
all over this
question
country. Yeah.
that I was going to ask you about, what would you recommend and what would you say if somebody says, you know what, I don't believe this Tommy guy. It's just a once-off thing. I'm not going to be this guy going over to the border filming stuff.
Yeah. Um, I mean, if first of all, if you don't believe what I said, please take the tinfoil hat off. I'm not going to go and put myself in prison for YouTube content. Believe me, that's insane. But listen, it's not like I chose this point of view that I have right now. It was literally forced on me. And because I was enjoying Russia up until that point. And if you had asked me just like a month earlier, I probably would have told people, oh, yeah, you could go. It's fine. People are very friendly.
Yeah.
It's, I did not realize the full extent of the system. And maybe it's possible you could still go to Moscow or whatever and have a normal trip. But just keep in mind, even for that, even if you're just flying into Moscow, you can still be interrogated right there. And I've heard it's very, very common. I don't know what happened when I was crossing from Estonia. Maybe I just got lucky. But that's like the norm for them to interrogate, especially any American or Westerner going in. So if you value your time and your sanity, maybe wait a few years before you go to Russia.
Yeah. I mean, thank you very much, Tommy. You are a big legend. I mean, you went through huge things, and it's great to have people like you who are able to voice all of this out. And guys, everybody, whoever, I'm pretty sure pretty much all of you know who Tommy is. But if you don't, there's a link in the description. You might as well check out his videos. It's actually really interesting of the videos he made in Russia. And then the last two that he posted out were about how he got arrested and then the full story. So if you want to actually hear that part, which has, a lot of details and then a lot of details we kind of got out of you over here, like the food stuff and how you went into the prison cell and all that stuff. So thank you very much, Tommy. I really appreciate it.
No, thanks. Спасибо большое.
Oh, spasiba. We got a Russian speaker here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, guys, and hit the like button. See you guys next time.
See you later.